I understand why many of you are here today. You saw the title, panicked, and questioned if your job or your potential work field of interest will exist in a decade or so. What will the future workplace look like? Today, we will discover how artificial intelligence will change the workplace forever. Before we look into the future, we must understand the past. This is not the first time American jobs have been in jeopardy. In the past centuries, mechanical looms replaced artisans, electrical streetlights replaced lamplighters, cars limited travel by horse, machine assembly replaced factory workers, and personal computers diminished the need for typists. This is all because of automation. Automation is the use of large automatic equipment in a manufacturing work environment. In modern history, automation was first seen in the early 18th century, the very first industrial revolution. It was the advent of the steam engine, which enabled the mechanization of production. Then, the second industrial revolution of the early 19th century, where electricity and the application of scientific principles created the proliferation of mass production. 50 years later, the third revolution magnified automation by implementing computer-aided design and computer-aided manufacturing. The computers allowed for digital technology communications, the internet, and the surge of ATMs. And here we are in the fourth industrial revolution of advances in artificial intelligence, robotics, 3D printing, genetic engineering, quantum computing, and many other evolving technologies. No one can truly predict where this revolution will bring us. Yet, if we look back at previous work insurgencies, our society can be better prepared. We dove into the past and explored automation and the industrial revolutions. Now it is time to address the younger brother of automation, artificial intelligence. First, what is artificial intelligence? Artificial intelligence is also known as machine intelligence. They are engineered machines that are programmed to mimic the actions and think like humans. The main goals include learning, reasoning, and perception. The capabilities for AI are limitless, as it could potentially hold the brainpower of a human. Leaders in many companies are advised to start to prepare for implementation of AI. It will transform the foundation of companies across the country. I am not the only one, of course, fascinated by what our future work environment will look like. There's been tremendous research and predictions from researchers across the globe. However, there's no general agreement amongst them highlighting the unpredictability of our future. Researchers tend to fall on one end of the spectrum or the other. Let's first take a look at the optimistic outlook. Combining the skills of humans with the skills of advanced machines will boost productivity to levels our society has never seen before. It will excel business production and yield higher profits for companies. A study by Accenture predicts that artificial intelligence could increase business productivity by 40% or more and forecasts 2.6 to 4.6% economic growth in the next 15 years. AI will perform strenuous tasks that will allow for employees to devote their effort and time into human essential tasks, so CEOs will be less dependent on employees. Not only will production spike, but there will also be a safer work environment from AI. MIT economics professor David O'Toole stated that automation has almost eliminated physically demanding, dangerous, and menial work for humans, which creates safer, less burdensome working conditions for many in the lower to middle class. Many workers report being happier than before in their new work environment. Matt Rodwell, a customer support officer for the Buckinghamshire Council, said the increased automation made his team feel smaller but more versatile. His job consists of responding to calls and complaints and also managing mailboxes. He felt automation and artificial intelligence implementation didn't put his job at risk, but made it better and more efficient. Now let's transition to the threat of AI. The economical impact is still unknown. It is true that studies predict beneficial GDP growth from artificial intelligence and automation in the future. In spite of that, many researchers fear some other potential economic impacts. There will need to be an expensive restructuring of Social Security from the role changes made to a workplace. This will also affect government spending for pensions, increased immigration, and new taxation policies. An increase in taxation would then deter investment in the country, thus having a major economic impact. All these possible negative economic events would trigger a downward spiral for this country. We have covered impacts on production and the economy, but how about the workforce? A meta-study conducted by MIT Technology Review revealed the discrepancies amongst researchers in an easy-to-follow chart shown. The chart showcases the lack of agreement amongst researchers on the impact of artificial intelligence. Those who believe in job growth look at the current state of AI, reduction in manufacturing costs, and an evolving market. Many base their evidence on the current situation with automation and how it's replacing tasks, but not jobs, and in many cases, creating more jobs. In our country today, 33% of new jobs are for occupations that did not exist 25 years ago. In most years since 1929, through technological revolutions, there have been gains in productivity and employment. Projected deductions in manufacturing costs as a result of AI will allow for a predicted 7.2 million jobs. With less money spent on manufacturing, firms will be able to raise wages and create more job offerings. Companies will also adapt for the better. A past example of this is how when the number of ATMs in the country quadrupled from 1980 to 2010, the amount of bank employees increased with it. Now let's flip sides. A study conducted by the University of Oxford forecasts almost half of the U.S. jobs will become automated in the next 2 decades. Examining 702 occupations, the researchers concluded that about 47% of the U.S. workforce is at risk of becoming obsolete due to automation. Not only are blue-collar jobs at risk, but many reports say executive roles could be threatened as well. For instance, up to 20% of the activities of chief executives could be automated, such as analyzing operation data and reviewing status reports. Jack Ma, CEO of Alibaba, is famously quoted in saying that in 30 years, the Time magazine cover for the best CEO of the year will very likely be a robot. It remembers better than you, it counts faster than you, and it won't be angry with competitors. End quote. Adding to it, more frequent job changes and a rise in precarious work will cause weaker worker rights and unions. Even at bare minimum, there have been a consensus among researchers that occupations like drivers and cashiers will face displacement or restructuring of their job. Despite the differences, researchers have found some common ground. There will be reskilling in the immediate future, new training for employees who show they have the ability to learn a completely new occupation. For example, an office clerk whose job has become obsolete will need to learn new skills to perform a different in-demand job within the same organization, such as a web developer. This will be due to the significant workforce shifts across sectors of the economy and changes in the content of jobs. Another consensus is the likelihood of job polarization. The lower-paid jobs that involve routine manual and cognitive tasks will compete with AI and automation. For example, a truck driver will not be able to apply for a robot technician job, and a cashier will not have the experience to meet the criteria of an executive role. Whereas the high-paid jobs that generally do not require routine manual skills will have higher demand. By looking at the patterns of previous industrial revolutions, job elimination will be the most prevalent in the short and medium term. Job creation will prevail in the long term. Alright, let's recap. It's inevitable. There will be jobs created as well as jobs eliminated. The job creation will be from the new demand in sectors that thrive from the implementation of the technologies, whereas the job destruction will be from the sectors that are replaced by AI. What researchers struggle to predict and agree upon is which will have the heaviest impact. Will there be more jobs created or more jobs destroyed? Once our society can accurately pinpoint this impact, then regulations and mandations can be made to control these technologies for the best of our society, thus creating a well-balanced yet very efficient work environment in this country.